Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined as always by Sean Keenan.
Heidi, are you watching Iron Fist?
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and hey guys, why don't we all get some sweet dragon tattoos on our chests?
You know, I think you can go and get the 3-for-1 dragon chest tattoos pretty much anywhere.
It's not really a tattoo.
You're right. It's the mark of the beast or something along those lines. We'll figure more of that out because today we are reviewing the first 6 episodes of Iron Fist that is debuted just recently on Netflix. A lot of controversy out there, man. It's considered to be one of the lowest rated Netflix Marvel series to date. People are up in arms about it, but are we up in arms about it? Are other people on the internet up in arms about it? We're going to talk about that and find out if it's worth watching this here series because, frankly, that's what we do for all of these darn things. So, we're going to have some fun, I think. And I think we might even learn a little something.
Oh!
How about that? But yeah, thank you guys so much for all the. We've had a couple people add on Patreon recently. Greg and I didn't bring it up. I think it's Eric. A couple other people. Thank you guys so much for that. That is continuing to help this show move along and everything. And the way stuff's progressing, I think, and I haven't talked to the other guys about this, but I think the network idea is coming quicker and faster than we might actually think. So we're doing good. We're doing good, and we thank you guys so much for that. If you'd like to help out with this show, patreon.com/HMP. You'll get the show with, we don't have ads right now, but once we get ads back, which we will, they've promised me.
Please support us so in the future you'll get an ad-free show.
Yeah, so
So Adam, you didn't completely queer all of the sponsors away?
You say a lot of curse words in emails, and they really get on you, boy. They're just like, sir, this is not becoming of a businessman. And I go, business my foot. And, it devolved from there. It wasn't fun, but hey.
Sir, your email said sucked 17 times.
And it was misspelt every time.
The variety is the spice of life, gentlemen. I don't know that you know that or not, but it is.
When we lost the deal with Chico's Bell Bonds, I thought we were finished.
It's sometimes you just have to,
They sponsored my Little League team.
Was that the one with the guy that smoked in the dirt bike?
It was. And there was a kid. Boy, that kid was like, you didn't think that he was a real Spitfire, but man, that kid really did not like any ethnicity at all.
So much casual cursing.
I didn't even know you could make those kind of insults about Romanians.
You just go, man, well, that's how it is.
That booger-eating spaz makes me want to puke.
Everyone under 30 is like, what are they talking about? Fantastic.
No, they saw the Billy Bob Thornton remake.
Oh, as we all did. We lined up in droves going, this is bound to be perfect.
He's my buttermaker.
That's a t-shirt waiting to happen. Billy Bob's my buttermaker. That could be construed so many ways.
He's my buttermaker is a great t-shirt.
Nothing goes together like casual alcoholism and Little League.
All right, so come Tuesday, I'm gonna do. He's my buttermaker is gonna be a T-shirt up, and I'm gonna link it on our Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. You can buy it. It's gonna be like $10 or $12. We'll make it happen. We got to eat around here. All right. So that being said, we're going to talk about the first 6 episodes today in Iron Fist. Doesn't that sound like what we just talked about?
Yeah,
all right.
First 6 episodes.
First 6 episodes. Here is the trailer for Netflix's Iron Fist.
Hi, I'm Danny Rand. I've been away a long time.
Let's go. You don't belong here.
I'm Danny Rand. Guys, I just want to talk. Welcome to Rand Enterprises. I left here 10 years old in a jet with my parents. I became the lone survivor.
Danny Rand, back from the dead. Why'd you wait this long to show up? How the hell did he learn martial arts?
Where'd you train?
Kunlun. My father instilled in me a love and respect for this company that has never faded. This is my home.
Rand is my company.
This city is no place for Danny Rand.
We put in practice, no discipline, no giving up, no giving in.
Danny, what happened to you? Why are you really back here?
Some bad people have gotten on the inside. Criminals.
I know what they are, what they can do. To fight them, we need someone with special skills.
I've been training my whole life for this. This is my destiny. It's time.
I'm going with you.
No, you're not.
You need me.
The change is coming, Danny.
Become what you were meant to be. I am the Iron Fist.
The hell does that mean?
Alrighty, that was a trailer for Iron Fist. Here's the IMDb plotline. A young man is bestowed with incredible martial arts skill and a mystical force known as the Iron Fist, starring Finn Jones, Jessica Henwick, Jessica Stroop, Tom... how do we pronounce that cat's last name? I want to be nice.
Pelfrey?
Pelfrey? Okay, that'll work. David Wenham and many more. So my guess is this is the first time, to my knowledge, I can't remember an earlier time, but I think this is the first time for us covering anything Iron Fist related. Bruce, what do you have for us in this week's comic book connection, sir?
Well, Danny Rand, a.k.a. Iron Fist, debuted back in 1974, created by comic book legends Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, and he immediately proved more popular than previous attempts at similar characters like Copper Toe, Lead Butt, or Tin Jaw. Now, when asked about the inspiration for the character, Roy Thomas said, "I'd just seen my first Kung Fu movie." That's all he had to say. How about that, folks? After I saw my first Kung Fu movie, my mother thought I'd had a seizure because I made a bunch of weird noises and hurt my back trying to do a flip. But this guy creates a new comic book character. If only I'd chosen that path instead of trying to crane kick my mailbox. Now, in the comics, Danny's father, Wendell, discovered Kunlun when he was young, and as an adult decided to mount an expedition to the Himalayas to rediscover it. And when going on a dangerous climb through some frigid mountains, why not take your wife, your kid, and an unscrupulous business partner who covets your wife? Because that's what Wendell did. He brought Harold Meacham with him. And, well, Harold shoved Wendell off the mountain, to make a long story short. Also, wolves attacked Danny and his mother on a bridge. The wolves killed Mom, and Danny was rescued by monks. These mystical monks trained Danny in the Kung Fu, and he was pretty good at it. He conditioned his fists by plunging them into buckets of sand, gravel, and rock to toughen them. Personally, I prefer Eucerin hand cream, but to each his own. Now, at age 19, Daniel is given the chance to attain the power of the Iron Fist by fighting and defeating the dragon Shou Lao, the Undying. Now, Shou Lao, the Undying, guards the molten heart that had been torn from his body. Danny defeated his adversary by, believe it or not, hugging him. Now, this prolonged embrace not only defeated Shou Lao, but it also burned that sweet dragon tattoo into Danny's chest. So having a dragon chest tattoo is not only the most intelligent thing a man can do, but it is also a symbol of his fallen foes. Now, having killed Shou Lao, he enters the cave of the dragon and plunges his fist into a brazier containing the creature's molten heart, and he emerges with the power of the Iron Fist. Daniel leaves to find his father's killer. He confronts Meacham in his office only to find that the man is legless. Apparently, both legs got frostbite in the mountains and had to be amputated. So he kind of, figured that was kind of a bummer. But I still think it would have been fun if there'd been like 15 panels of Iron Fist beating up a legless senior citizen. But I was denied that. Now, what exactly is the power of the Iron Fist, one may ask? Well, plunging his fists into the molten heart of the dragon Shou Lao, the Undying, infused the dragon's superhuman energy into Rand. This allows him to summon and focus his chi energy into his hand. I tried this once, but due to a slight spelling error, I turned my fist into a chia pet. Though it didn't help at all with fighting, it did lead to hours of conversation at parties. Now, in addition to being a rock-hard hand, his strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, and senses can all be greatly intensified. Iron Fist is ranked as the 195th greatest comic book character of all time by Wizard magazine, which is sort of like saying, yeah, we know you exist, but we don't really like you. Well, for me, at least when it comes to martial arts heroes like Karate Kid, the DC Comics version, not Ralph Macchio, though DC did license the name to the movie, Karate Kid 2, still talking characters, not movies, Shang-Chi and Richard Dragon, whose name I often shorten to Dick Dragon, well, Iron Fist will always reign supreme.
Yeah, now I do wonder, because of the time that everything came out. So Iron Fist was out in 1972, right?
74.
74.
74.
74, okay. Because my guess is, if I was to venture a guess by what I kind of do with the timelines, chances are he probably saw, like, it's called King Boxer, a.k.a. Five Fingers of Death. It's a pretty good film where a guy has kind of a big glowing hand and everything. So that was always kind of my guess as to.
He did say there was a scene in the movie called The Challenge of the Iron Fist or something like that.
Yeah, so what happens is there is a big giant challenge and stuff, and there's a whole bunch of other characters that come around, and he has to beat all these different styles and stuff. It's a pretty good flick.
You know, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but triathlon was created after Stan Lee saw Jim Cotta.
Yes. I would not be. You know what? That sounds like a good idea for a film. Someone else get to work on that. I'm going to take all the credit.
And NFL Super Pro was created after Fabian Nicieza saw the Super Bowl Shuffle on MTV.
How dare you, sir? The classic that is Super Pro.
Yes.
I gotta love a Spider-Man cameo.
When was he an Avenger?
Somebody's got to bring that back.
Yeah. I think Nicieza still harbors ill will towards me because I chose to emphasize Super Pro over Deadpool when I introduced him.
That's great. That's great.
That was the first and last time I got to sit down with him.
Why don't they ask me back to do these panels anymore? What gives?
Hey, let's take a walk down this walk of shame.
You remember the worst thing you ever did? Well, let's highlight that and put it amongst all of these people. Enjoy. So Iron Fist is the last of our, kind of pre-Defenders single titles,
Phase
if you
one.
will.
Phase one of the Netflix universe.
Yeah, so I think pretty much all the shows have garnered pretty good ratings as far as what ratings go. Netflix doesn't really tell us, but all they say is runaway hit, kind of thing. So we don't really know numbers, but they say, hey, it's done really well. All of them were pretty well received and everything. But this one did not get the highest of ratings going out the chute there. A ton of people got the first 6 episodes ahead of time, of which we'll be discussing today, by the way. A lot of outlets got those, and this did not get a lot of favorable reviews. And by the way, we weren't one of those people. Just saying,
Yeah.
Well, what are you talking about? Bruce and I got the upfronts on this.
Well, so what now?
Yeah,
actually,
Bruce and I got it like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
I've been getting dailies from the Defenders.
Oh, you know what? Why don't I just quit this show? But we weren't privy to these things, and it's difficult. And frankly, I think Marvel would be wise after this one to forego that, giving this to outlets, because honestly, number one, the majority of these outlets, I think, don't know, jack squat about, source material. I think that's numero uno, right? And number two, I think seeing only 6 episodes out of the 12 does not give, or 13, right? Is it 12 or 13? I think we're 13.
13.
Doesn't give you a full breadth of what the entire show is. And I think really judging a series, especially one that dumps in, the you get them all at once fashion as this one and all the other Netflix series do, I think it's kind of a disservice to the thing itself. That being said, we're going to review the first 6 episodes this week. But no, it's tough to really judge an entire series on that, and I think a lot of people automatically had a bad taste in their mouth going into this, and I think that is somewhat reflected in some people's reviews, but thankfully I've seen a lot of people who are kind of fall on the opposite side of the fence.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where what I'm hearing from just regular folks on social media or people that I kind of know in my daily life is a lot more positive than those advanced reviews were. And I've got some theories about why those advanced reviews maybe weren't as good as they could have been. And I'll get into those near the end of the show.
Okay. So I don't know that I would say I was necessarily looking forward to this. I mean, the other characters, I mean, really Daredevil is probably my favorite. It's the one that I've, read the most books of, long term. I think Luke Cage was probably number 2, Jessica Jones 3, and this one 4. Despite me being a pretty decent, kung fu movie fan and stuff like that, I don't know why this has never really resonated with me, but I like the idea, just never really read a lot of the books.
Well, Iron Fist has never really had what you call that iconic run in the comics like all these other characters have. I can tell you the Frank Miller Born Again Daredevil series is one of those legendary series in all of comics, not to mention the Man Without Fear series that Frank Miller did. Luke Cage definitely has some classics going back a while. Jessica Jones, that Alias run by Bendis, was universally loved. Iron Fist, the closest he's had to a great run was the one that Matt Fraction did. And I think maybe Greg Rucka did part of that run too. But Matt Fraction did, and the artist was David Aja, the same person he worked with on a really cool run of Hawkeye. And that's fairly recent, so it hasn't really sunk into the cultural zeitgeist like some of those others.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was about to bring that up because I was going to go, hey, wait a minute. What about the Matt Fraction run? Because to me, that's the best. That's the best Iron Fist story I've ever read. We're homers when it comes to Matt Fraction, former employee of Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, but it is a good run. I think Greg Rucka did do part of that. I believe you're right.
Probably. That guy does a lot of things. But going into this, I think we're pretty. Let's go overall impressions. I'd say, and then we'll kind of get into the whole sort of thing.
I guess you got to start with Danny Rand and Finn Jones, and I'm curious what you guys thought when we first see Danny walking down the street barefoot, looking like a marijuana advocate.
Look, anytime that we can start any sort of program with an Outkast song, I'm kind of already on board a little bit.
I'm half on board.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, all right, well, okay, well, let's see where this goes, It is interesting. The biggest thing for me about the Danny character when we really start is it's one of those times where you're just like, dude, how about you just tell somebody something in a full sentence and really kind of get out all of your thoughts,
Okay.
Well, that's the thing. He's basically a lot of times just going, I'm Danny Rand, and that's it. Don't say like, look, I know what you're gonna think. I died in a plane crash. There's all this other stuff. Don't worry, everything's all cool. Let me explain any further than, oh, by the way, I'm Danny Rand. Can I just talk to the guy at the top of the skyscraper here? Is that cool? Dude, come on. You got to give a little bit more explanation. He's always giving little tiny nuggets instead of just giving the big giant chunk that he needs to in order to make sure that, he doesn't get bashed about the face.
Well, he just spent 15 years in a monastery where they're not necessarily the best communicators.
That's a good point. Didn't think about that, but that's fair enough. Where you have very
dare you spend more than 20 minutes in a monastery without wanting to pull your hair out, Adam.
Something else.
Now, I guess my biggest impression is the actor. I know him as Loras Tyrell, the Knight of the Flowers from Game of Thrones, and I always thought he was just a little too thin. A little too frail. I wasn't sure I could buy him as this character, but he's put on a little bit of weight in a good way, and I was glad to see him a little more full, and with the fluffier beard helped a lot too in those first couple of episodes to win me over.
Yeah, he's big, but thankfully he's not too big. He still looks like he's got, more what you would consider the Iron Fist build. Yeah.
But he doesn't have that frail, like I could be a double for Paul Rubens look to him like he has in some of those episodes of Game of Thrones.
No, he looks like a swimmer.
Yeah.
So here's my impression. So here is how. First of all, let me start with this. I like Iron Fist just fine. I went into it not expecting much. It's fine. It's not changing the world. It's not a wretched train wreck like some of the early reviews say. Like it's fine. Here is how I think you can fix the show. Marvel over and over again keeps telling us, look, we're trying not to make just straight up superhero movies and TV shows anymore. We're trying to expand so that people don't have superhero fatigue, which is a smart idea.
Mm-hmm.
So what you need to do is basically when Danny Rand shows up at the beginning of the show, why isn't he basically Jason Bourne? Like, you know, he's been gone forever. It seems like a slam dunk that he doesn't know who he is. You know, showing up, especially the way he shows up, it seems like a very, very easy fix to do that. And then you have 2 or 3 episodes of him wailing on dudes and not knowing how he did it.
Okay, so instead of like coming home and knowing, hey, I'm coming back to reclaim my stuff, he wakes up and just goes like, hey, what's going on here? This is different from everything that I know. And then finding out he's Danny Rand.
Right.
Now,
exactly.
I don't know if I'm red hot on that idea, but I do think it would clear up some of the problems I do have with these first early episodes. And I'm going to say this a few times before we're done, but I see some flawed writing here, some lazy writing, which doesn't ruin a show for me because I love all the shows on the CW. I've watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've watched the shows on Sci-Fi, so I can deal with some less than stellar writing, but they really seem to have a problem amongst the writers of understanding what Danny's motivation was. So if he just doesn't know who he is, then that's all the motivation you need, is he wants to discover who he is. Whereas here, you know, he's come back for a reason, but I'm not sure that even he understands what that reason is. He says it's not about the money, but then goes to court to make sure he gets his fair share of the money. Does he just want a family? Does he not just want I never really understand what he's looking for when he comes back. And I think what you suggested, Sean, might have put that out of my mind.
And the other thing with this show, too, is that, you know, you mentioned the CW. You both know, and I've made it no secret, just how much I can't stand the TV show Arrow. It's awful to me. I dislike it immensely. This show is basically a better version of that show, the first season anyway, where, you know, he comes back, he's been lost, everybody thinks he's dead, but he's alive actually, and he has, you know, these special skills.
Yep.
It's just better done. And it seems surprising to me that they keep hitting the same beats that Arrow does, you know, where you keep flashing back. You keep seeing the same moments in the plane. You keep seeing, like with him with the stupid boat with Arrow. You keep seeing the same moments over and over and over again. It's like, did anybody over at Marvel actually watch the first season of Arrow? Because it's pretty close.
I think they may have and just gone like, hey, great idea. How many seasons that show up to now? 5? All right, well,
yeah,
soldier
and
on,
I gotta
brother.
say, they did such a good job with the flashbacks in season 1 of Daredevil, and they've done just a lousy job here because we don't get flashbacks. Like you said, we get one flashback of a crashing plane over and over again, never revealing anything new, totally pointless in its repetition. And I didn't even realize how much that bugged me until you just mentioned it, Sean.
You know, this, of all the other shows, this show feels very rushed to me. Not just with their production schedule, not just with the writing. You know, I mean, it's my job. So the art department on this show this is the weakest of all of the shows we've seen so far for Netflix, Marvel.
Now, I have somewhat of a deficiency in being able to see flaws with the art department. What sort of stuff caught your attention as maybe not being up to snuff?
Well, one of the things that made me insane is, and I don't remember what episode it is, but they're in the records room of the hospital, and he gets into a fight with the guy with the brass knuckles, and you know, it's that pretty dang cool moment where he flashes the Iron Fist and he breaks the brass knuckles. That's a cool little moment. Mm-hmm. But what completely betrays it is that they're in a room filled with file boxes. Those file boxes have absolutely nothing in them.
Like, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
And it makes it seem like a set. It does not seem real. I'm not saying that they have to fill everything and hurt people with these massive boxes of files, but at least put something in there. I mean, they're completely and utterly empty. And they're
I wrote this down in my notes. I haven't seen so many empty boxes since Future War. Go ahead.
And I won't even add that extra level of that goes along with being someone who's actually been in a hospital records department, you know?
Right.
That it looks nothing like that.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, okay, so they probably, let's say they didn't have Windows 98 in 2001 when he broke his arm.
Yeah.
You know, which everybody in the world had Windows 98. But anyway, it's sloppy and it's quick, and it's because it's all. I really think that they really pushed this out so that they could get to Defenders quicker, which is fine by me. You know, this show is fine to me. This show feels like the Thor of the Marvel movie universe, where, you know, Thor, they kind of cut corners a lot, especially with that first movie. And while I like that character, those movies are, you know, they're kind of thrown together. The first two are kind of thrown together. And that's what this feels like to me.
And something I won't complain about, something I've been very satisfied with, is the performance of the actors. You know, I was happy with Finn as Danny Rand, but I was really, really impressed with an actor I wasn't familiar with, Tom Pelphrey, that plays Ward Meacham, a guy who's mostly done soap operas, and I would have had low expectations. I loved his performance in these first 6 episodes. What did you guys think about sort of the I don't know, the rat-faced son of the thought-to-be deceased Harold Meacham?
He's just so punchable, and that's what the character requires. Yeah, but he's just got that, like, you can't, anything that he does, you're just like, oh, you're such a scumbag.
And you got to love any show where the son looks to be clearly 5 years older than his father.
That's funny.
But I just out of curiosity, I looked up how old Tom Pelphrey was, and I also looked up how old the guy playing Harold Meacham was. And to my surprise, the actor's only 34 years old. He's just one of those Willem Dafoe types that is born in a bad condition and only gets worse.
Yeah, and Boromir's only like 51, so that can iron out.
But the sad thing is the 51-year-old actor honestly looks younger on screen than the 34-year-old actor.
Oh, he does.
Well, the 51-year-old actor also went through the 300 diet.
That's true, man, twice. But I do love it. You know, he's getting kind of frazzled and strung out towards the end, and he's got what I would call totally Shemp Howard hair going on in a scene.
I love that.
And just going with it. And I loved it, man. The courage from that actor to just carry on with that great performance looking like Shemp Howard from the ears up.
Knowing him like I do, that's local weatherman Al Conklin looks like that at 3 o'clock in the morning when he comes stumbling into the. It's true.
You know, it's funny because that guy, the guy we're talking about here, Pelphrey, he worked on Banshee, which is a show that shot here in Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
And while I didn't work on
was that an X-Men show?
No, it was not. And while I did not work on that show, I worked on the good show that shot here in town, Homeland. My lady, my woman, worked on Banshee, and I asked her about this guy because this guy played one of the main bad guys in one of the seasons, like he's like the Nazi or something in the show. And he and I asked her about him, and she was like, you know what? He was really, really nice. He was really nice. And then they go rolling, and he turned into a Nazi.
That's how it tends to be, man. The people that play like the worst people are always just like the nicest people.
Well, because they get it all out.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're not wrong there.
I don't know, man. I heard that guy that played Voldemort's still kind of a rough customer in real life.
Rough customer.
Now, the actress who seemed to garner the most attention from these early reviews in a positive light is the actress that played Colleen Wing. And I think she does a good job with Colleen, but I don't necessarily see that she stands above the rest of the cast. Do you guys have any strong feelings one way or the other about her?
I have a question about that character.
Yeah.
The actress is fine. She's just fine. She's serviceable. I don't think she's amazing. I don't think she's going to change the way we look at karate. Anyway.
Well, I'll say this real quick before you go into that.
Please.
I think she's a fine enough actress. She's good at that. But the best part about her is she's clearly had more training than anyone else in this show, and therefore her stuff is believable. Go ahead.
Well, and that's why she's there.
Yeah.
My question is about the narrative of this show, actually. So,
yeah,
towards the end of episode 6, I think, where her friend shows up out of the blue and is like, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, you're doing a great job here." And then she talks about the Iron Fist and how great he is and blah blah blah. And is that guy part of a secret organization? Are we supposed to know where he's from, that guy?
You're talking. I don't even know the guy necessarily you're asking about. A friend shows up and talks to Colleen Wing about the Iron Fist.
He's in like one scene.
Yeah,
I don't even remember that scene. I don't even remember this scene.
He seems to be part of a secret organization or something, or like I'm hoping that pays off later. I don't even know, but I would imagine it's either going to pay off in this or it's going to pay off in the Defenders. I would imagine.
He is. It's a blink if you miss. If you blink, you'll miss it performance for sure.
Because when you said her friend that shows up, I was running through my mind, and the only thing I could think of is when Claire shows up. So I don't even remember this guy you're asking about.
Well, he's a Hispanic guy who shows up.
Okay, there is the leader of the Hand in South America, and his name is Bakuto, I believe. And that might be who this character is supposed to be, because I did see that Bakuto was listed as a character that appeared, and I have no idea where he showed up. But he is a Hispanic character in the comics, or South American character at the very least. He might be, I don't know. Anyway, you get me. So that might be who that's supposed to be. Did they refer to him as Bakuto by any chance?
I don't. I couldn't tell you, but they're friendly. Like they talk back and forth about
I'm pretty sure that's the guy. Yeah.
Is it
Ramon Rodriguez?
So the hand is good in other places.
No, the Hand is always bad, but the Hand is good at pretending not to be the Hand.
I see.
So, maybe they're both just in martial arts world and know each other as martial artists, and she has no reason to be an enemy of the Hand and no reason to know about his business. So, it's just like the guys that, produced cigarettes and gave the world cancer in the 80s and 90s probably had friends that didn't particularly care for cancer, but, that's just how life goes.
Right.
All those pro-cancer lobbies that you keep hearing about, you know how it is.
Hey, we've all seen Thank You for Smoking. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a great flick.
It had I, Frankenstein in it, didn't it?
It did indeed. And I know that's how he prefers to be referred to as I, Frankenstein. Hey, Mr. I, Frankenstein, you was good in that Batman movie, I, Frankenstein.
That's a good-looking Frankenstein.
That's Apple's version of Frankenstein, the I, Frankenstein.
Here we have the I, Frankenstein. It's the most sleek Frankenstein we've ever made.
And then I'm trying to round out the cast here. Anybody else that really bears much attention? I mean, we already mentioned Faramir. Joy, that actress, she's been in some sort of B-type horror movies that I've seen. I think she's okay. I don't necessarily think she brings anything special or worthy of discussion, but she's not bad either. Joy Meacham.
I find her attractive, so that's enough for me.
Well, yeah, that's always a plus, I suppose. That goes for Madame Gao, too, so I'll go ahead and throw that in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Actually, kind of a small cast. A lot of characters that show up and don't really have much development. There's that homeless guy in the park that befriends Danny early on and then dies. And I kind of thought something was going to happen there that seems like it didn't. Maybe it will by the end of the series. But that really felt like a dropped thread there.
Yeah, it did. It felt like they were ramping up to something and nothing happened with Big Al.
I did
Big
like
Al and his what did he have, a crow tattoo or something?
He did. It was a crow, I think. Yes.
So I think he's going to come back as the Crow by the end of the season.
Oh, we're all doomed.
He's a Nighthawk.
He's going to come back and be all romantically dead.
He's the Robin.
I did like how, he just goes, "Hey, I got this iPhone and everything," and I'm just like, how is a homeless man getting an iPhone? And then they had the great, before this person who I stole it from turns off the system. I'm like, oh, nice.
That was pretty good.
I like that.
And I also like that he can get hoagies on demand.
Well, he did say he took them out of the garbage, so. But
Which,
yeah,
man,
but
there's no such thing as a bad hoagie.
But here's the question: who makes the hoagie at the end of the night and then throws it out?
It was probably made like an hour before closing in case anybody came in.
My guess is you would make that on demand. If you're an establishment that's worth anything, I would say.
You clearly don't understand how the high risk game of sandwich works.
We got movers and shakers with the sandwiches. You know how
it seems like
it
you
is.
don't know anything about the grinder industry.
If somebody wants a chicken parm, they want it now. They ain't got no time for some fool to run it back and make it. You got to have that.
You know, I did see you know, the McDonald's movie recently with you know, okay, it's fair enough.
Ray Kroc, the founder.
Little Ray Kroc story. I get that. That makes more sense. I've been bested. Thank you, Bruce.
You know, pretty early on here, I guess we can go into some plot points before we run out of time here. But pretty early on, we get this whole idea of Danny Rand in the psychiatric hospital, which really poses a lot of interesting sort of philosophical thought experiment type games, because if nobody had any way to prove you were who you were, how do you prove you're not crazy? You know, like proving you're not crazy is sort of like proving you've never drank lemonade. Like, you can't prove you haven't not done something. You can only prove you have done it. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I felt really bad for the guy strapped down. Totally sounds crazy, but he's also totally telling the truth. And there's also that whole idea that just because you're telling the truth doesn't mean you can't still be crazy.
That's also a very, very poorly attended mental hospital. There's like 8 patients in there.
You know, they had a better quality of care in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I got to tell you that. He should have been sent to the place Legion was at. That place was nice.
Oh, man, that place is gorgeous.
5-star hotel.
It's like at a W or something.
But the guy, like, I love the guy who just, like, first meets him, and I'm just like, I could tell from the get-go, I'm like, there's something weird about this cat. Oh, he's going to stab him to death.
Now, and there was this real-world experiment done in, like, the 70s, I want to say, might have been the 80s, where actual psychiatry residents, like people training to be a psychiatrist, they wanted to sort of see how standardized care was in psychiatric inpatient hospitals. They were given very specific instructions to go, like, to the emergency room, report that they felt suicidal, you know, to say everything that they know you can say to get admitted for 24 hours of observation. And then after you're admitted, you're totally normal. You answer everything honestly. You tell the truth and see how long it is before they discharge you. So a lot of people in there on those 72-hour holds, some of them were released before the 72 hours were up. Some of them were kept greater than 90 days. And when they started saying, look, this is the truth. These people said, look, I'm a psychiatry resident. I was sent here as part of an experiment. My work is done. I have to get back to work. I have bills to pay. I got stuff to do. I can't fool around with this anymore. And that they just checked off the box extra crazy. I mean, doesn't that sound like what a lunatic would say? Wow. And this is real world, man. People can look this up. The paper was both interesting and frightening at the same time. It got to the point where, like, the chairman of or not the chairman, but the principal investigator of the study had to contact hospitals to get people released, and they still weren't wanting to release people in some cases.
Wow.
Because you would become violent after a while. You know what I mean? Being restrained against your will. You would have outbursts. You would start to get fed up with this. And it really kind of exposed some lack of standardized milestones and care programs amongst inpatient mental health facilities, which I hope have been sort of rectified in the meantime. But watching this, I'm just squirming, thinking, you know, this could happen to anybody the way it's depicted in the show.
Yeah, that's frightening.
I mean, all you got to do is lose your ID while you're visiting New York, and you're going to have a long time proving you are who you say you are, you know, especially if nobody will answer your phone calls, which has been the case in my life more than once.
Well, at least they cover some, you know, a couple of the standard sort of questions, just like, oh, well, we'll do fingerprints. It was like, well, I was 10 years old when I was going. What do you think? I got fingerprints just lying around? No.
Now, I mean, would either of you guys have fingerprints?
I would. Well, that's
okay.
Maybe at a later date in my life, not at 10.
But Sean, I would imagine they did this in your school. But during the Reagan presidency, they had this thing, this like missing children network kind of thing, where they went to all the elementary schools and fingerprinted everybody. But my question is, I wouldn't even know if those things are even still on file anywhere. It was just a little like 3x10 index card.
It seemed like just a check in the boxes kind of thing. My school did something similar to that.
Yeah, I would also think I have no idea what they do with that. Did they keep all that stuff? Do they toss them after a couple of years? Like, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm wondering. This was done at a time before. I mean, maybe they put them on microfiche or something, but it was done at a time before it would have all been thrown on a hard drive. And then, I mean, I've been fingerprinted since then. To get, a professional license in North Carolina, I had to submit fingerprints to prove that I hadn't committed more than 4 murders.
More than 4.
So I guess I have a record now, but I'm thinking, this guy, if I only had what I was exposed to before 15, it would be really hard to prove you were who you say you were. I mean, you don't even have to go to a monastery. Just if you never got a driver's license, then all of a sudden it starts to get real hard to prove anything. Where are you going to get DNA evidence that, if I had to submit DNA to prove that I am who I say I am, I don't even know what they would compare it against.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I want to, because you see all these things on TV. This is Adam's public service announcement. Don't do any of these Ancestry.com where they're like, hey, man, send us some of your DNA. We'll tell you who you're going to be, who your line is and everything. Don't do that, people. That's a way for them to track you. That's just Adam's public service announcement.
It's big genealogy cartel trying to keep tabs on Adam.
They're gonna find out who you are. Just like, hey, would you like to voluntarily give us all of your fluids? No, I would not. Thank you.
You're gonna find out it's just some elaborate X-23 style thing where they've produced a young Adam that's out committing,
oh my God,
committing atrocities.
Maybe we can point that kid in the right direction.
Now, I guess to get to the meat and potatoes of Iron Fist, because there's really only one thing and one thing only that can make or break Iron Fist, the television show, and that's the Kung Fu. What did you guys think about the Kung Fu?
I'll let you guys go because I got thoughts.
Well, I know you're going to have big thoughts on the Kung Fu. What do you think, Sean?
It seems like somebody at Marvel Netflix is like, hallways. Everything is going to happen in hallways. And it happens over and over and over again. So you get to see the different styles how people fight. And I get it. And it's fine. But at some point, they're going to have to do more than that. I
like it when they said, man, these hallways have been working for us, but I wish there was a way we could make the space more confined. Hup, elevator.
Right. But we saw a much better. We saw a much better elevator fight in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
but
so,
you're right. You're right.
And so, the thing with this show, like, again, if I have anything to say about the show, it's that it's just fine. It's not terrible. It's not great. We've seen better versions of this, and we've also seen worse. I mean, this is better than Arrow, but it's not better than Winter Soldier. And I don't think it's trying to be. I think it's literally like, let's get this last guy in here so we can shoot the defenders. Let's go.
I think the Kung Fu worked for me. And we've had a lot of fights in the other Netflix Marvel entries, a lot of fighting, a lot of hallway fighting, a lot of rough and tumble stuff, more like an MMA style approach to things, which I guess is the real world way they should do it. But when you got a guy that was trained in one of the capital cities of heaven, and he can turn his fist into a glowing gold orb of iron, you need to have the more ridiculous Kung Fu. And I think they do that here, and that works for me. The only thing that doesn't quite work for me is how inconsistent they are with Colleen Wing. The character in the show is a little bit different from the character in the comics, and they're sort of all over the place with her. But overall, and her fight scenes look great to me. It's just, is she a samurai? Does she study karate? Does she study Kung Fu? I don't know, because they're kind of inconsistent there. But I think the fighting works for me. I think it's different enough from the other stuff. It has that added flair you need to have to be Kung Fu and not just standard action fighting these days.
All right, here's the problem.
Adam, go.
Here's the problem. Okay. Like I said previously, Wing stuff is probably the best. She's clearly had the most training out of everyone here. And I did a little research, and by and large, a lot of the same stunt team, a lot of the same choreographers. There's a little bit of differentiation here and there between the two, but by and large, it's a lot of, like, most of everything for all of these Marvel Netflix shows are pretty consistent, from set to cinematographers, art department, all that kind of good stuff, and fights are no different. The biggest problem with this is that Finn Jones just does not have enough training. He's clearly had some, but he has just not had enough. And this is one of the few times in the world where I'm watching some martial arts stuff and go, please cut the shot. You need to start cutting more, because if they don't know what they're doing, you have to cut it up. You can cut it up and make them look like they know what they're doing. Now, it's been a bit more these days of having these wider shots and kind of letting things go, which under great trained people looks fantastic. Under people that are just doing a choreography dance, it doesn't look so hot. It looks, and there's a difference between, because part of me thought, well, maybe Finn Jones doesn't look like, he's trying so hard because he's just that good, right? And I went at it from that perspective, and that's not the case either, because there's a difference between having that, like, look, I'm so good that this is effortless, and I'm really just, I'm performing the 1, 2, 3 of this dance. And he's more of the 1, 2, 3 of the dance. There are certain scenes that are better when he starts to go, when they have like the showdown and everything. That stuff is shot a little bit better than, some of the other earlier stuff is. But it is just kind of like they focused on a couple of spots, but really the biggest thing to me, and I really looked, I was just like, well, maybe it's cinematographer, maybe it's editor. A lot of that stuff is lining up with the other series, man. And that's what really kind of bugged the crap out of me, is just like, what's working for one is not working for the other. You have to learn to adapt and switch when you need to.
And I think some of this might come back to what Sean's been saying too. Even though it's the same people that have been working on the other, if they're just trying to barrel through it so they can get to Defenders, there's a difference in how much work you put into something on a Wednesday morning and how much work you put into it on a Friday afternoon. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong. And Finn Jones, in the scheme of things, was probably cast closer to start date than any of these other folks.
And in defense of Finn Jones, compared to, let's say, Charlie Cox, who you're going to draw the biggest comparison to, thanks to the Daredevil costume, even before he had the red costume and he had his face covered, they were able to use a stuntman for almost all of Charlie Cox's fight scenes. Mm-hmm. And Finn Jones had to do these himself. And, there's the whole idea, did he have enough training? Did he not have enough training? Well, the point is, he didn't have the fallback that has always kind of been the go-to fallback in Hollywood.
Yeah, and the big problem is, and he does have a couple of doubles, obviously, but the big thing is that, they're wanting to shoot this show like they're shooting the other shows, and if you don't have the same kind of congruent sort of training and everything in there, it's not going to look the same. It's not going to have that same feel, because he just doesn't have that level of ability. Now, maybe by, if and they do a Iron Fist Season 2, he could have a heck of a lot more training, and things could look a whole heck of a lot better. But I don't know that, you're right. I think ultimately when it comes down to it, it's because the series was kind of rushed, because frankly they want to head over to the Defenders, which just ended shooting actually this past week.
Well, I don't know how this season is going to end up, but if there is a Season 2 of Iron Fist, I guarantee you his face will be covered. I think they probably will get to the green and yellow costume that I need to see from the comics. Mm-hmm. Somehow they'll decide that Danny Rand is too famous to be going out there and doing things without covering his face. I think we will get the costume, and the next thing you know, they get a Ray Park type under the mask, making the Kung Fu look great for the second season.
It'd be a wise decision. I mean, and I know that they kind of want to have faces and stuff in there, and that's kind of like, the current situation with a lot of these things, but sometimes you have to lean into it. And it, as much as we all like the original costume with Daredevil here, the new one looks really, really good. They've went through three different costumes if you count the first one now, and each of them looks better than the last. So they're doing a good job, and I think they need to not be afraid to go down that alley, especially because you have already all of these elements in there. We're getting more and more fantastical with this stuff, and I think that was a great transition from Daredevil starting off in a very real world and then dialing up the otherworldliness of everything. We're at a level now to where you can dial that up. You can have the more comic booky sort of thing and not feel weird and wild and out of place.
And, I'm going to vote, if Marvel gives me a vote, that Season 2 of Iron Fist should just be Heroes for Hire, and it serves as Season 2 for 2 different series.
Oh, that's a good point, man. They should totally do that, because I think that it's a mistake to go to Iron Fist Season 2.
Mm-hmm. And I think that as good as Luke Cage Season 1 was, it had some rough patches in the second half of that season, and I think that putting these two characters together would shore up both properties.
Also, something that's been missing, that's missing, and now is about the time maybe they're going to do it with Defenders. They need to start going bananas on at least one of these properties on Netflix. You know what I mean by that? Like, everything is so real world.
I think they got pretty bananas by the costume that Cottonmouth, or not Cottonmouth, but the costume that Copperhead or whatever was wearing at the end for that final battle. They got pretty crazy there.
Which I was the only one who liked.
But the last thing I guess I'm going to point out, and I want to echo again, I watch a lot of shows worse than this. I don't have any problems with this show. I think the biggest problem it's running into is that it's not as good as the other 3 properties that they put on Netflix, but that still makes it in the running for the 4th best show ever, because those other 3 are like the 3 best shows ever. So, but I don't understand, again, writing with motivation. It's like the person who writes one scene isn't allowed to read what happened in the scene before. But Colleen Wing going to these which I've got a big problem with the whole movie trope of underground prize fighting anyway, because there's far more money to be made in like the actual legitimate prize fighting, which there's no shortage of these days. But, she lectures her student about what a disgrace it is for him to go fight for money. And then she goes and fights for money without any real explanation why she's doing it. She still seems to be flat broke regardless. Later, they kind of try to reveal that she's doing it just to prove she can or something, but I thought that was really poorly written, that through line.
You're right. It's very
where
inconsistent.
is the scholarship money coming from?
Yeah, and what kind of scholarship committees call the guy that leads the dojo at the strip mall where you got your yellow belt? I mean, this is some really, really diligent scholarship committee here, unless it's like an actual martial arts scholarship, which would be weird because I can't tell exactly what martial arts she teaches, because the first time we see her, it's like she's trying to teach them to be samurai. She's quoting the Bushido code. The character from the comics does have a strong tie to samurai, but I don't think she teaches samurai classes. It's kind of weird here. The character from the comics is Japanese. Here they give us the idea that the character is Chinese in ethnicity, yet really drawn to this Japanese culture. I don't get it.
No, you're not wrong. It's very consistent in that sense, where it does seem like, hey, I watched a kung fu movie. Here's a show.
But in the comics, you can think of Colleen Wing as being a less out there version of Katana from DC Comics. But here in the show, I'm not sure that they have any idea what they want her to be. But, fortunately, she does shine through because of the charisma and the abilities of the actress and such. And I'm hoping there are big things in the future. I don't know if I'm hoping for a Daughters of the Dragon spinoff series with her and Misty Knight, but anything's possible.
Which, honestly, I think would probably be cool. And I think... And I could be wrong. This is, of course, based on 6 episodes worth watching here. But I think if given the right material, those two would actually do quite well together. Because I think they both have enough of a personality. And you give Misty that arm, man, and I don't know, it's on.
I'll just throw it back to my theory about Heroes for Hire as being the season 2 for Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
Really
just go ahead and make that season 1 for Daughters of the Dragon. Just have all 4 of those characters working together. I really, really need them to move Danny into his romantic relationship with Misty Knight, because I don't like what they're doing here with Colleen.
But I think it's I think you're dead on right, and that was my kind of feeling of this, is like maybe they should just skip season 2 and season 2 of Luke Cage, do with these two together, because with the way that the personalities kind of go out, I think they feel like they would be comic accurate to a degree, at least,
Yeah, and I did like the little homage to the comic book roots of Colleen Wing when they introduce her as the daughter of the dragon. But that would kind of be like Luke Cage. I guess he did it in the Luke Cage series where he referred to himself as a hero for hire. I'm not a hero for hire. But it's weird to hear Daughters of the Dragon made singular.
But, I'm interested to see where they'll go with that. But, we still got another half a season to finish up here. But before we start to do all that kind of stuff and wrap up the show, we have to figure out how this television program relates to our good friend Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thanks, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Salah Baker plays the role of King on Netflix's Iron Fist. He's a big dude and a native New Zealander. So he has a unique look that keeps him employed. Give me a guy who looks like he'll punch a fool just because he doesn't like the hat he's wearing any day. His brother Ali so eloquently put it in his song Forrest Whitaker, "Damn a magazine, these is God's fingerprints." And if I'm going to remain forever honest with you, HMP, I put that in there to let everybody know that I listen to the rap music. Sala Baker worked on The Lord of the Rings as a stuntman because if you were alive during the filming of that movie and lived in the country, you were immediately put to work on Lord of the Rings. I would like to think that the entire nation of New Zealand became a sort of countrywide studio where if you look in an almanac under New Zealand's biggest export, you'd simply see Lord of the Rings. Mr. Baker has worked on some of the biggest movie properties of all time with movies like Star Trek, Captain America, Iron Man, Deadpool, and the aforementioned Lord of the Rings. He basically needs Star Wars to complete the nerd quadrinity, which is a word that I just found out is a real word today. But in 2010, he worked on a movie starring WAP-sploitation star Sylvester Stallone. That movie was called The Expendables, which is a weird name for a group of people where not a single one of the Expendables dies. Recently, I've been sending Twitter messages to the Stallone connections to see if they're actually listening to the show. So if you're listening, Sala Baker, how about you drop me a line? Let me know if you're listening. I'm tired of Bruce having all the weird celebrity stories, like the time Flash Gordon complained about soggy French fries, or when Eliza Dushku called them the Unabomber. I want stories like that. Come on, give me something, Sala Baker. So there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone Connection. Now, old Asian lady and young Asian lady, let's review the first 6 of Iron Fist so we can completely dump all over Mighty Morphin Power Rangers next week, because that movie is going to suck. Suck.
You left out the part where Chuck Yeager called me an idiot.
Oh, and Chuck Yeager called you an idiot. Dang!
Playing his cards close to the vest, Sean. All right, so we're gonna I think this is the first time all of us have only watched the allotted amounts episodes that we actually needed to for this program. Usually, we barrel on through the whole darn thing, and we kind of, restrict a little bit about what we're talking about for the second half and everything, which can be good and bad. But I think it's going to be good for this situation. Let's do this. Instead of proper rating for this time, we'll save the rating for the next episode that we review the second half. Good. Let's talk about what just a minute, 30 seconds, minute of whatever you would kind of expect to see or would like to see in the second half. Let's start with Bruce.
Well, I'd like to see a definitive villain emerge. I think it needs to tie back more to Kunlun than it does to the Hand, because the Hand is going to be the big villain of the Defenders, and the Hand is Daredevil's villain. And so I'd like to see a significant villain emerge. Most importantly, I want to see a green tracksuit with a yellow bandana tied around his face and some Adidas Gazelles in like a lime green color on his feet. I want to see a comic book accurate costume by the end.
Well, good luck with that, Sean.
First of all, Bruce, good on you. You know your audience. Dropping Adidas Gazelles on me. I actually have the perfect pair of Adidas Gazelles for him to wear if he wants to be perfect to the costume.
Are they golden green? Like my alligator shoes? Okay.
They are golden green, and they are glorious. Anyway, what I want to see, what I would like to see is I would like to see something surprising happen. Something where it's like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming at all. Because so far, it's kind of beat for beat on the show. And let me amend that. Something surprising that is good. Let's do that. What this show desperately needs right now is a big name. I mean, and it doesn't have it. It's suffering from that, in my opinion. Not everybody knows Iron Fist. I barely did before the Matt Fraction run. I knew Luke Cage way better than I knew Iron Fist. So I'd like to see somebody show up here. That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
Iron Man.
All right.
Perfect.
I think it just needs to, like, I'm okay with what's kind of gone on so far. I mean, I'm not, overly blown away with it, but I'm, it's had me intrigued enough to continue watching. To where,
yeah, for sure.
Everything is like, it's good. Is it spectacular? Not really, not yet. I hope it kicks up a little bit. I'd like to see one or two really good action scenes from here on out, at least, but build upon the story. I mean, I like the work that they've done with the characters so far, despite some of the inconsistency with a little bit of it. Kind of like some of the relationships with things. Gotta love Claire showing up. That's always a good thing. Gotta love Jerry showing up. Always good. But more of that kind of stuff, man. And just, wrapping into the entire world here and really, finishing the series out and really making us go, dude, defenders. That's what I think it really needs to kind of set the table for. All right. Well, that is it, everybody. So we are not going to. So normally the way we would do these episodes is we would review the first 6 episodes and then the last 7 the next week. But there's a lot of stuff on the horizon, so we decided, hey, we're going to give a little bit of a break here, give everybody a chance to catch up, so you can watch all of this stuff. So next week we're going to be reviewing the Power Rangers movie. Yeah, that's something that's actually related to comic books in a roundabout way. How, you ask? Well, you're just going to have to tune in next week and find out, man. But Sean thinks it's going to be a great one. I think he said it was at least the top 15 movies that he wants to see in 2017, so I'm super excited to see his take on it. But, be that as it may. Until next week, though, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
People are tired of hearing me talk about my book, so I'm going to talk about something different. I'm just going to mention that I've only got 1 chapter left in my new book that hopefully will be available by tax day, so be on the lookout for Chubby Wizard, Wrath of the Manticore. You can check out the Chubby Wizard podcast, the Heroes and Villains podcast. Always good stuff there.
Oh, it's disgusting how much you do. And Keenan.
You can find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean.
And
done.
There, thank you. It's refreshing how little you do in comparison.
I just can't talk about the stuff I'm doing.
That's true. Keep that under lock and key. I got plenty of stuff, though. The filmfind.com, and, of course, my daily podcast, Nerd Talk Now. Available on Stitcher, iTunes, sometimes YouTube if I don't get a copyright strike. And, of course, streaming Sunday through Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Nerd Talk Now. We've had call-in shows. We got people watching live, chatting in the chat room and stuff. It's a heck of a fun time. So we talk everything from, movie news, comic book stuff, you name it. If it's a nerdy endeavor, we're going to talk about it, my man.
You should do one of those paternity test shows like Maury Povich.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Well, guys, listen, I have to fill up 5 days a week, so don't think that that's not an idea that somehow I can cajole into a program. So Nerd Talk Now, so check that out on Facebook and everything like that. All right, that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we talk about Go Power Rangers, the Sean Keenan's favorite movie of 2017 so far, I'm sure.
Man, I'm telling you, if you are listening to this show and you got mad at my review of The Crow or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and you love the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, those two were a cute prelude to what's going to happen next week. I promise you.
Once you see it, email us at Nerd Talk or at what show are we on? Your Movie Podcast at gmail.com.
It's only the most successful one you do.
No, Preacher's more successful. All right, that is it for Bruce Leslie, Sean Keenan, and I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Amy.